Okay, good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the South Coast BC Transportation Authority Police Board meeting of April 23rd. And I'd like to acknowledge that Metro Vancouver Transit Police operate throughout the traditional territories of the Lower Mainland Coast Salish people, and we give thanks for their hospitality on these lands. We're very lucky to be able to live and work in this beautiful place. So shall we get started? We've got item 1.1 on the consent agenda, and that's a number of items. Has everyone had a chance to look at the items? Okay, does anyone have any comments, would like to take any out and discuss as a separate item? Okay.
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much. Recommendation number 1.2, that the South Coast British Columbia Transportation Authority Police Board of Directors approves or receives for information the following items on the consent agenda, items A to M.
So moved.
Thank you. Okay. Great, so we can go straight to item 2, public delegations. I understand we have a member of the public here to speak with us. We're very pleased to see that. And sir, welcome. Your name, I understand, is Daniel Lim. Errol Lim, pardon me. And you want to talk to us about 911 and e-com, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Right, okay. Well, welcome to our meeting.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for coming. We're always pleased
you,
to
Madam
hear
Chair.
from the public and glad when people come. So thank you. And hi, Ali. And great, you can take it away.
Okay. Good morning, members of the board, Madam Chair. Yes, I would like to present to you regarding this e-com. Now, the 911 call is not connected to the transit police. So in case if there is an emergency, I will have to call 911. If let's say there's a situation on board a SkyTrain or in the station, but what I think is that would it be possible for my suggestion to implement the 911 call to be connected to the transit police? This is just a suggestion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Perhaps, Chief, is that something that you think you could consider and explain perhaps for the public how that system works a little bit?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for even the suggestion and the thoughts and for attending. The current structure of policing has that the 911 calls go to the jurisdictional police agency. So it's not that it's not being answered. And of course, even going through 911, the calls can be posted to, if we're say in Burnaby, it would be posted to the Burnaby RCMP, who would also notify us as well if it's directly related on the system or immediately adjacent to it, and it's something of any urgency in terms of it. So it's not like calling 911 will not get you the assistance you need within the transit system, including if you're on the system at the time. There has been some discussion about the future of communications. It's called Next Generation NG 911, which could result in that. But we also have to be careful because jurisdictional police have that primary responsibility for their area. And we don't at times want to cause confusion about a major event occurring, say within a city, within an area, of having different locations, I want to say, picking up the numbers. So there is an opportunity in the future that may exist, but it'll have to be looked at in terms of both the setups and the process for how a call would be dealt with.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions, sir?
No, thanks a lot.
Oh, okay. Well,
Thank
we're
you
very
very much.
pleased you came, and
Chief.
we're always excited to hear from members of the public. So thank you very
Mr.
much for.
Jones. Yep, right. Thank you, Mr. Jones.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
And you too.
Thank you very much. All right. we can move on then to our next presentation, which is from the Alzheimer's Society of BC. We have Ms. Sana Aziz. Hello, thank you for coming. I understand you'll be providing a brief presentation on the role of the Alzheimer's Society of BC and the services offered particularly for first responders.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you very
Welcome
much.
to our meeting.
Thank you very much for having me here, and I'm very pleased. I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation and my screen, if that's okay, and introduce my co-presenter here as well. So just give me a moment. I hope technology cooperates. Okay, I trust everyone is able to see my screen. Please let me do so otherwise. Great. Thank you. Hello and a very good morning to members of the board and everyone present here today. My name is Sana Aziz and I am the Provincial Coordinator for Dementia-Friendly Communities with the Alzheimer's Society of BC. It is my honor and privilege to be present here today. I'm also so very grateful to be here with Jim Mann, who has kindly given his time to co-present with me today. And we look forward to spend the next few minutes with you. Our goal here is to talk to you about the Society's Dementia-Friendly Communities Initiative, our vision for a dementia-friendly province, and our approach towards our goals. I will then pass it over to Jim to share his lived experience with us. And if time permits, we will be happy to answer any questions you may have. So let's start by asking, what really is a dementia-friendly community? There are an estimated 70,000 people living with dementia in British Columbia. We know that approximately 60% of people living with dementia live in the community. The Society's vision of a dementia-friendly communities initiative is really to create a BC that is supportive of people living with dementia by bolstering the efforts of local communities, the municipalities, and the general public. A dementia-friendly community really can be described as a community that's supportive, inclusive, and accessible for people living with dementia as well as their care partners. So for example, a dementia-friendly community focuses on stigma reduction and the inclusion of people living with dementia. Ideally, each community member is educated about dementia and knows that a person living with dementia may sometimes experience the world a little differently and may need some support. Ultimately, people living with dementia through these initiatives feel supported by individuals, businesses, and the local governments to be able to participate in their communities to the fullest extent possible. Typically, dementia-friendly communities are defined by their social characteristics. So for example, first responders are dementia educated, able to recognize and communicate effectively with a person living with dementia, as well as their physical characteristics. So for example, clear and legible signage is placed at eye level, well-kept streets, and easy to use street furniture are some of the ways that people can navigate and access seamlessly. We recognize that there is currently no cure for dementia. But until a cure is found, the Society's vision for a world without dementia must begin with what we call a dementia-friendly society. And we recognize that we can't do it alone. It will take a dramatic shift in our culture to support people living with dementia, their caregivers, family members. It will really take a movement. So by joining the movement, you are really helping to create a world where people feel supported and included in their community. You may wonder how we realize our vision. So it's through building a community of care, a community engaged in moving away from fear and denial of the disease of dementia, really dedicated to creating a foundation of understanding and awareness. This idea of community of care informs our approach at the Society. It hinges on centering people living with dementia, their caregivers, and the families. They are the innermost circle that you see in the diagram, the one in blue. We support them through the progression of the disease and amplify their voices through initiatives like our BC leadership groups, which Jim is a part of, and he will be speaking to. The middle or the brown circle really represents the community of care that I was talking about earlier. People who understand dementia, really understand what it is, and are able and committed to fostering a dementia-friendly province through their actions. The outermost circle, which is the yellow circle, really represents the general public, the people who may not know much about dementia, go about their days really never thinking about it and what it really means to be affected by dementia. So our goal here at the society is really to decrease the outer circle and increase the brown circle, really expand that, bringing more people into this movement. As I mentioned, our goals are big, our vision is big, and the Dementia Friendly Communities Initiative, which is part of the society, is one piece of how we are trying to work towards that goal. So the Society's Dementia Friendly Communities Initiative enables local governments, the professional sector, community groups such as the first responders, and the general public to become more dementia aware, dementia friendly. By providing tools and education and by forging strategic partnerships, the Society is helping to build communities that value and include people. One of the goals of the initiative is really to change the conversation around dementia by removing stigma and raising awareness to enable change for the experiences of people living with dementia. So, this initiative really enables us to change the conversation about dementia, change the experience of people affected by dementia, um, hopefully change the practice of working with and caring for people by affected by dementia, really by educating staff and volunteers in the different community groups and different levels of municipalities in different healthcare settings, so people have the skills and the support they need. Our goals include changing the policy related to dementia, so we work with government levels at municipal as well as provincial, national levels to really champion the voices of people that are affected by dementia. And lastly, we support the change by really changing the future, supporting research in this field. I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes really quick to talk briefly about the society's approach to our dementia-friendly communities. And it's focused on three pillars, as we like to call it: people, practice, and policy. The first pillar of people is focused on providing information and education on topics such as what is dementia, the myths, communication strategies, common behaviors to to individuals so they're better equipped to be supportive and inclusive of people in their communities. We provide dementia friends education to various sectors across the province. We've successfully partnered with different specific sectors for training to first responders in recreation, transit, library, um, search and rescue teams, faith-based organizations, to name a few. Our second pillar of practice ensures professional groups have access to resources and information to respond to the needs of clients affected by dementia through sector-specific toolkits. So, for example, we have this series of making your workplace guide dementia friendly, specifically for the finance, housing, legal, and recreation sectors. And we're continuously working to upgrade and update our toolkits for different sectors as well. Lastly, the third pillar of policy really is a very central element to the work of dementia-friendly communities as we work with local governments across our province. To date, we have supported approximately over 15 communities with a couple of communities in progress as they create and implement dementia-friendly action plans or other dementia-friendly projects as per their municipal goals. Our hope is that with the support of our municipal and service sector partners, we can create and spread awareness and provide the tools that are necessary to become a dementia-friendly province. One of our biggest services really is our first link, dementia support, and I'll won't have much time to speak to this, but just in brief, what I would like to share is that this is a program that connects individuals and families affected by Alzheimer's disease and other dementias to a community of learning, services, and support at any stage of the journey. Although, yes, it is geared for family members and persons living with dementia, this is a very particularly, the Dementia Helpline is a great tool and a resource available to community members, service providers, first line people in the public. Anybody who is curious, has questions, has queries, is more than welcome to phone this number to receive supports. Want to also note that our Dementia Helpline is available in English, Punjabi, Cantonese, and Mandarin, and is available until late evening. And if anybody is interested to learn more about that, I'm happy to share more information at the end of our presentation today. So as I speak to you today very briefly about the Society's vision for a world without dementia and a dementia-friendly society, a world where people living with the disease are included, welcomed, and acknowledged, I'm really honored to be here alongside Jim, who is a longtime advocate living with Alzheimer's disease and really an inspiration for me. Jim was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in February of 2007 at the age of 58. Since that time, he has been active in the community, breaking down stereotypes, assumptions about people living with a diagnosis of dementia by volunteering in the community, collaborating with research projects, and through his writing as a published author. Jim is a member of various advisory boards and committees, including the Access Transit Users Advisory Committee. For the City of Vancouver's Dementia Friendly City Initiative, Jim participated in the making of Jim's Story, which many of you may have heard or seen, which is also available on YouTube and is an illustration of living well with dementia in the community. Recognizing Jim's advocacy efforts towards the rights of people with lived experience of dementia, UBC awarded Jim an honorary Doctor of Laws degree at their fall convocation last year. Jim, I am so grateful for you for taking the time to share your lived experience with us today, and I'm going to hand it over to you. At this point, I'm going to end my presentation slideshow and stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other. Okay, sorry about that. Just trying to stop sharing, and that's not. Thank you. Thank you for bearing with me on that. And Jim, over to you.
Good. Thank you, Sana. Good morning. As a user of the transit system in the Metro Vancouver area, I am honored to be here this morning. My only disappointment is that I didn't have to take a bus and then SkyTrain to attend this meeting. In 2014, I recorded a video with the Vancouver Police Department for city workers to be aware of people with dementia. I was pleased to be a part of the project because having additional sets of eyes in the community looking out for people with dementia was positive. There are many people who believe a person is diagnosed with a dementia and goes immediately into long-term care. They think that individual will no longer be able to communicate and will have mobility issues. So to have city workers aware that people with dementia were in the community and may experience disorientation or other challenges was positive. The video also spoke to knowing what to do and what to say to individuals showing signs of needing assistance in order to give the city's outside workers some reassurance. Likewise with the transit police. They are ever present in the community and of course around the transit system, so are with passengers, some of whom will no doubt have Alzheimer's or another type of dementia. They may be called upon to assist someone, and some understanding of dementia will help them help a transit customer. When I was first diagnosed in February of 2007, I was 58 years old. I looked well, I was functioning. Today I look well and I'm still functioning and looking relatively healthy and able-bodied. Many people can and will challenge me in my diagnosis, or they will not be willing to accede to my request for assistance. Not only is that a challenge for me, it's potentially challenging for your employees because Alzheimer's and other dementias are a cognitive impairment and not physically apparent. Add in a very busy SkyTrain station or a bus loading and unloading, and the possibility of confusion and disorientation increases. As more and more of us are living with a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or other dementias, more and more of us are not satisfied to stay at home. We do go out in our communities. We get involved in our communities, and we are seen in our communities. Like an acquaintance of mine, I'll call Greg, who stopped driving after his dementia diagnosis, so asked a friend to show him the ropes of using the transit system. They walked to the closest bus stops, both leaving home and again for the return ride until he was comfortable. He learned how to deal with getting the compass card charged and then how to use it on the bus and then on SkyTrain and C-Bus. One day, Greg decided he would take the bus on his own, which unfortunately didn't work out that well because he got confused using the compass card boarding the bus. He hasn't been on a bus since, in large part because of the reactions of those around him, laughing at his confusion. As we try to get out and socialize, people will get lost. People will ask questions, some of which may seem so self-evident as to be silly. And then with the hustle and bustle of transit stops and buses, people with dementia may well get disoriented and simply wander aimlessly, and some will panic. I personally know that feeling of disorientation and panic, and it's not pleasant. As I boarded a Canada Line train a few years ago, I noticed a disembarking passenger who I was convinced had dementia. He seemed disoriented and looked bewildered. Unfortunately, I didn't react in time and the doors closed. But at the next station, I used the emergency phone to alert personnel to this individual's possible need of assistance. The outcome is, of course, not known, but I will say the person at the other end of the line gave me confidence this man would not be ignored. It is because of stories and situations of others and my own experiences of disorientation that I make a point to leave the house wearing a lanyard with the Alzheimer's Society's card. Please be patient. I have Alzheimer's. Yes, it's an educational tool showing a willingness to anyone I'm happy to talk about dementia. But more importantly, the card gets me out of potentially sticky situations where I may experience disorientation. It will also be noticed by someone who may offer assistance, communicating a reason for my situation at that moment. I'm proud to say I've made it this far. My interactions to date with your employees have been positive, which is a testament to your human resource and training staff. They have been helpful, for which I am very grateful. And as I end my part of the presentation, I want to include a quote from a Dementia Action Alliance video entitled Person-Centered Matters that included an interview with Dr. Jonathan Evans, a geriatrician, who said, and I quote, "Even though dementia isn't something that affects the brain, dementia does not equal or result in a loss of intelligence. On the contrary, people use their intelligence to overcome some of the impairments that dementia causes. While there are many losses people experience from dementia, dementia doesn't make you stupid. Dementia doesn't rob you of your ability to experience joy, to be happy," end quote. Thank you.
Sorry, Sarah,
Sarah, you're on mute.
you were
Sorry.
probably on mute.
I'm on mute. Thank you. I was saying thank you, Mr. Mann, for giving that presentation and helping us see a little bit better through your eyes. I'm sure everyone appreciated it. I'm wondering if anybody has any questions for either of our two presenters today. Thank you, Carla. Director Hotel.
Hi, thank you very much to both of you for those presentations. I was just going to ask Sana, you referenced a toolkit that's sort of workplace specific. Is there one that's transit specific?
That's a really good question. we have some toolkits available that are not specifically for transit, but they are for first responders, and they were developed by the Alzheimer Society of Canada. It's a toolkit I reference very often, and we are in the works of updating it. But a short answer is yes, we do have that available, and I'm happy to pass that along as well as other information if that is helpful.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Thank you very much.
Of course.
George.
Just a question maybe to the chief or the executive. Does the transit police and its training kind of around, mental health issues and dealing with individuals either with Alzheimer's or dementia or autism and so on, is that part of the overall training for officers?
Yeah. So go ahead, Barry.
I was just going to say, it's covered off at the police academy. And I know in our cycle training, our annual training, we do introduce this at times. Sana's predecessor actually came and did some briefing training with all of our members when they came on duty about 2 years ago, I think it was, and left us some very handy, helpful cards to help our members understand what to do, what to say, and how to provide assistance. So it is embedded in our training, certainly probably not on an annual basis right now, but it is certainly there and it's available to them. So.
Thank you.
And just to note, George, as well, I'd say we're honored to have Sana as part of the Transit Police Community Council. And so as part of it, we have that ability to interact on a regular basis, as her attendance is stellar, right? And we are always open to that, new toolkits as they're being developed and ensuring it gets out.
Great. Well, I imagine too, it must be an incredibly difficult time with COVID for someone who is on transit, because everyone are concerned about people approaching, yourself at any time, and then someone who's confused. This even adds to the problems, as Jim was talking about. I assume this past year and a bit has been very difficult.
Yeah, the past year, each year, since I've been here, there are always, I'll call them success stories of somebody identifying somebody who appears to be confused. And it may have been a bus driver, or a station attendant, or just a citizen. And on some occasions, our members are familiar. They may be familiar with somebody who uses the system quite frequently, who they've interacted with before. So they'll keep an eye out for them. And I call those are the really, I'm going to say, success stories or good news stories, when we hear that we've been able to help somebody, even if it's just phoning a relative to come pick them up, and we stay with the individual. And I can think of a couple last year where the members identified somebody who they had interacted with before, checked on the individual. There was some confusion, just took them to a local coffee shop, phoned the family because we had the number on hand, and waited for the family to come and arrive and just help them. Alzheimer's, dementia, I think it touches everybody. It's hard to find somebody who doesn't know someone or have someone in their family. So in terms of it, so that level of understanding is real important.
Thank you. And are there things specifically, you said you had those toolkits and you have your policy and your vision for the community at large. Are there specific things you'd like to see the transit police do to improve the services that we can give to the public?
Jim, would you like to take that question first, and then I can add?
I think for me, it's the awareness in general, because of the stigma of dementia and the stereotypical person with dementia is not necessarily someone like me, like an able-bodied functioning individual. It can be more difficult. However, the awareness and the awareness of how to approach the person, not from behind, making sure that are you seeing, not are you seeing me, but focusing on the police member, and maybe getting them to a quiet spot, and as the previous speaker said, go to a coffee shop. I thought that was really that was a lovely story, actually. And so it's little things like that become really, really important. And so it's more just the awareness and understanding. And I do know, I was, as a member of the Access Transit committee, we had a fire drill, or not a fire drill, the fire alarm went off. And on my way back in, actually I think one of your training instructors was on his way out and actually said hello to me as if we were best friends. And he had said that he's seen Jim's story so often, or knew Jim's story so often, that he really felt he knew me, which again, I thought was really positive, because I think Jim's story does convey a lot of helpful information. So,
Thank you.
appreciate your question.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any more questions? Okay, well, it's 9:30. Thank you very much for your presentation. We're really honored that you took the time to come and educate us and share your story. I know everyone really appreciated it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Sonia. Thanks, Sana, and thanks, Jim.
Thank you for having us. Have a good meeting.
Thank you. And now we're moving on to item 2.2. We've got Constable Julian Poncian. Hello.
Hello.
It's in my eyes. Neighborhood Police Officer Constable Julian Poncian will be providing a presentation on the newly launched Waterfront Community Policing Center. We're very excited to hear about that. Constable.
Oh, good. I'm excited to talk about it.
Away.
So first off, thank you everybody for letting me join your meeting today. I am very excited to talk about the Waterfront Community Policing Center. And this has been a project that's been ongoing for a little while now. But a little bit about me. So I am the neighborhood police officer for what we call the Community Service Area 1, or the downtown core. That area also extends across the Burrard Inlet to over to Lonsdale Quay. So I really get the best of all worlds. I kind of share that with the volunteers as well. So they get to enjoy the downtown area, plus go over to Lonsdale Quay if they want to, change of scenery or a different cup of coffee or something like that while they're out doing their job. This is just one of the hats that I wear. I know that some of you know about some of the different hats I wear, but I'll get into those maybe on another day. Where did this all start from? Well, back in 2017, roughly, I was one of 3 police officers that I was sitting in an office of about 1,200 square feet. And I thought, what an absolute waste of space. We've got a perfectly good office here that was set up very well, and there needs to be something done with this space. So I started thinking about what it would look like to share the office, maybe use it as a satellite for some of the other community policing centers around my area. And maybe through a little bit of good luck on my behalf and some bad luck, Chief Palmer on the Granville CPC, there was a flood. So that brought the Granville CPC down to Waterfront, and they were there for a little while, which allowed me to get some stats. And with these stats, I actually was able to start to form a business case. I was hoping that maybe they would stay there for a little bit longer, but unfortunately, the maintenance crews got the work done at the Granville CPC done a lot quicker than everybody was expecting. So they moved back in within about a month and a half or so. But I was glad to have them, and I still actually, whenever the Granville CPC needs to, and obviously COVID dependent now, but when the Granville CPC needs to do some training, they're always welcome to come down and use space at Waterfront. So the concept was very simple. It was basically much like our policing model. It was a multi-jurisdictional community policing center that worked with volunteers on and around the transit system. And I did a little bit of research, and I will admit that I haven't researched every single transit police department, but I believe that this is the first of its kind for any transit police department. So I was pretty excited about that. And I was excited to share that with the volunteers and have the volunteers join me and with that excitement as well. Of course, as we all know, back in March, the government threw a bunch of restrictions on us, and unfortunately, COVID took hold and everything was put on hold. So that's okay though, because I thought I was prepared to start, and this just gave me a little bit more time to prepare. So some of the steps to where we got to now, or the steps to success that I needed a little bit more time to prepare was, of course, creating a website. And I'm a police officer and I was a paramedic before this. Never in my life did I ever think that I would become a web designer or an IT specialist or anything like that. But I had to create a website. We then had to create some application forms, because how do we get volunteers if they can't apply? We had to build policies. We had to develop training plans. And then I still had to prepare for a launch. Luckily, again, through the help of the West End Cole Harbour, I had a student come and help me for a little bit, and that was fantastic. We also had to figure out how to get gear and other things. So I reached out to TransLink, and there was a team that was just starting up, and their job is to find sponsorship for different things. So they were excited to jump on board. This was going to be their first big project, and TransLink agreed to sponsor up to $20,000. And what this ended up creating was the ability for me not to have to buy things, which I was fully expecting to do, but this allowed us to find sponsors. And our jackets, for instance, are sponsored by DS Tactical. The iPads that we use are sponsored by Easy Park, as well as ICBC has given us some money that's gone towards the tent that we use. And we still have a little bit more funding, and we're looking at sponsorship now for recognition to the volunteers. So all of this was in place, and we set up a new launch date for September of 2020. And I was pretty excited about that. We had a few people come down to the office, and then of course, COVID-19. Numbers started going up, so we had to put things on hold. Now, how do you keep people engaged while you have no public or no office space, while you are trying to launch a program and you've just brought on a number of volunteers? Well, exactly what we're doing right now. I hosted a number of Zoom sessions, and actually I was glad to hear about the Alzheimer's Society, because I think this is one that I'm going to have present to the volunteers as well, because it's something they need to know about while they're out and about on the transit system. Well, then we got into, actually, if I go back to December, I had Chief Jones come on and do a presentation to the volunteers, and he flat out said, "You're going to be starting in the new year." So now I had to actually get off my butt and plan a launch. So I planned for February, and I just picked the first Tuesday in February, which happened to be February 2nd, or Groundhog Day. And it seemed like every day after that, I was doing the exact same thing for probably 2.5 to 3 weeks. And that was orienting new volunteers to the system, walking them around, and it was just repetitive. So it was kind of ironic that we started on Groundhog Day. But on that day where we launched, we had a number of the executive come, and thank you very much for that. We also had people from the West End Cole Harbour and Granville CPCs, as well as the Downtown Vancouver Business Improvement Association come by. Since then, we have done a number of things. So our volunteers have already contributed over 580 combined hours of patrolling on the transit system. We've partnered with our other TransLink partners, as you can see in one of the pictures down below. That is with Canada. That was at King Edward Station a few weeks ago, where we were registering bikes on the 529 Garage project. We have also done 529 at Metrotown, and through those 2 weekends, we've registered over 120 bicycles. We've gone out with the volunteers and put 529 bike hangers on the bikes at 5 different parkades around the Vancouver area. Yesterday, we actually partnered with the Chinese CPC to promote transit safety, unfortunately, in this current climate of the anti-Asian hatred that's going on. And we were challenged by some people in the area that didn't feel that this was appropriate, that didn't feel that we should be doing this kind of thing. And yeah, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but we were there promoting transit safety and supporting the Asian community. We've also worked with the Metro Vancouver Transit Police Canine section. And I mean, it's a little hard when you don't have a lot of people on the system, but the volunteers love working with the dogs. Currently, we're sitting at about 39. Actually, I'm going to say we're 37 volunteers. I just had 2 resign because it's becoming too expensive. They live too far out, and for them to come downtown every day was, or for their shifts was a little bit difficult. I have a group of 20 that are probably my core right now and are very active, and they are really the heart and soul of the Community Policing Center. All I require is 4 hours a month. And that's not hard to do. If you pick up 2 shifts, you actually contribute 5 hours. So you're already well over what your minimum commitment is. I currently have about 25 applications that are somewhere in the works. We just brought on 7 new people, which I'm going to train 6 of tomorrow. I'm going downtown after this to do another interview. And it was so popular that I was getting on average 2 to 3 applications a day in my email inbox. And I ended up going onto the website and just shutting the link down for a little bit and saying to everybody, I appreciate the interest, but right now I just can't keep up with what's going on. So each application takes me approximately 5 hours. And then I take that complete package and forward it to our recruiting section, who probably takes another few hours on this. So this is kind of where we're at, but where do we go from here? I don't know. You know what? The sky's the limit. I think within the first 2 weeks of launching, the suggestion was already made that possibly we look at starting in Surrey. But there's bumps in the road. There's things that we have to consider. So, you know, where do we go next? Well, I guess I would say let's just do this for a few more months, and then maybe we can see where we go from here, because I think in the next few months, I'll have a little bit of data that I can share with you. I'll probably have some success stories. Yesterday was a prime example. We had somebody walk in with some found property on the train, and within less than an hour, we had it returned to the person that lost it. And that was all because of the CPC. So with that, thank you very much. I will stop sharing my screen and I'll open it up for any questions.
Remember this time. Thank you, Constable Poncian. That was terrific. Really interesting. Great work. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to commend the initiative, opportunity, and then being resourceful in the sponsorships. I mean, that is just brilliant. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
So Sarah, just a comment on it. So I just want to thank Julian. This is his initiative. He brings a passion and commitment to doing this. He's got excellent relationships in the Vancouver area with the Granville Street CPC and others in the area that it has allowed us to, you know, build off of their lessons learned and successes in terms of it. Hopefully, I know this is the public portion, but there's some movement afoot that the TransLink will be getting more prominent space in the waterfront area that we will be included with, which will be far more public facing grandeur, if I want to call it. And certainly, you know, our movement is that there will be space for Julian and his volunteers in that area to be able to work and be part of it. So hats off. This is again, we support it and have, but Julian is the driver behind this. So
Thank you.
Great job, Julian.
Thank you.
Terrific. And so exciting to have so many people volunteering that you have to actually shut it down for a little bit. That's terrific.
Well, sorry, one quick question. Do you need any more exposure to this program? Like, do you need the chief or anybody to, did you know that we have this volunteer program put on our buses or SkyTrain to kind of make more people aware of this additional community service that we're doing?
I would never say no to more exposure. I think if we said no to that, it'd be silly. But yeah, absolutely, I would gladly take any more exposure that we can possibly get.
So I put that to the chief. I mean, there's two.
Oh, I'll answer for him.
Yeah, I think it's one thing just kind of portraying the type of officers we have, the initiatives that they do, the community spirit. It hits on so many points, and it's a bit of like, hey, we're doing good things, which is good PR, and hey, this is available to you, and it's good for to do. So I'm going to leave that to the chief to follow up.
I could see Stephen furiously typing that down as part of his communication strategy. So we will follow up.
Adam.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, Julian, great to see you. I just want to thank you for all your incredible work in the community and really appreciate the relationship that you've built with the other CPCs in Vancouver. And it's a really strong partnership. And your leadership is really appreciated in the community. So I just want to thank you so much for what you do. And also for members of the public and also board members, Julian does a great job on social media and he's worth following and does a really good job of informing the community what's going on via that network. So keep it up, Julian, doing a great job.
Thank you, sir. And to pass down through the ranks to the CPCs, the help that they have provided over the last, few years really has been incredible. Primarily the Granville CPC, the West End Cole Harbour, Strathcona, and the Chinese CPC have all been just amazing. And I'm glad that we formed a partnership. So thank you.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Julian. That's super interesting. I'm really excited about it. Delighted to see that it's off and running. It's great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the presentation.
I'm off to downtown now.
Okay. All right. Have we got anyone here today from the TPPA for item 4 on the agenda? Not today?
Not today, Sarah. No, he was going to try to make it, but something came up.
Okay, so we can move on to item, what time is it? Item 3.2, Chief Officer Information Report. Chief.
So thank you very much, Sarah. I'm going to, as like in the last time, I was going to give a brief update and then call upon Deputy Chiefs Cumberworth, Cross, and Superintendent Furlan to provide updates from their area. My brief one on just in regards to COVID-19 though is one is just to inform the board that the transit police have now been included in the first responder rollout of vaccines, and that came in last week. So we, our members have been actively and critical support staff have also been getting vaccinated. There appears to be a very high uptake on that, and we'll wait a couple weeks and see if we can try and get a gauge as to where we sit as to how many have taken advantage of this. There had been some who had been vaccinated earlier, so that of course is of great support to our members in terms of getting out there and doing the job in terms of it. The other one, just real briefly, is, as you know, today the government will announce is in the midst of announcing right now, the Minister of Public Safety, new travel ban restrictions. I don't want to go off because he's been talking since 9:30 and answering questions as to what's happening here, other than to say that, at this point here in the public forum is that there is no plan on police conducting random stops or setting up, roadblocks between health regions, at least from our perspective, in the transit police, that there is none. This is simply another tool, like anything that has come out in this whole fight against COVID, like when we got the mask, we try to rely on education first, reminders, warnings in terms of doing this. There's a public health need here. it's a tool that can go in the toolbox to be used, but I just want yourselves to know there is no plans, and I say this with a little bit of an asterisk, subject to what the minister is announcing here today. But at this moment, as we started this meeting, there wasn't an indication that we were suddenly going to race out and start something here or start doing random checks. That's not part of what we see was necessary at this moment in time. As again, though, I just put is that COVID-19 and the regulations and that change quickly. It changes sometimes on a daily basis between the morning and afternoon in terms of it, and we'll work to keep you informed as to what is happening there. So with that, I would ask Deputy Chief Cumberworth if he can give an update on the ops side.
Thanks, Chief. And if I can suggest that Superintendent Ferland go first, because she runs one of the sections in my division and I don't want to steal any of her thunder, and then I'll follow.
Thank you very much, sir, and good morning, everyone. So since the middle of January, I've been in charge of basically our patrol support services section. So that's a wide variety of sections that I'll just give you a brief update on. So first of all is our Canine section, and just in the last couple of weeks, we have introduced 2 new adorable black labs. They are brothers, and we have 2 new members that have joined the Canine team. So they are just socializing the 7-month-old dogs, and they will be starting with their training at the beginning of June. Of note, Sergeant McGinnis, who runs the team, has decided to follow in the footsteps of the New York Police Department by naming our dogs after fallen members, and not particularly just in the line of duty, but members that have passed away. So our dogs' names are Chopper, which is a member of the Abbotsford Police Department who sadly passed away from cancer last year. And our other dog's name is Harnett, who is named for the member that did die in the line of duty with the Calgary Police Service. And of course, we have discussed this with both of the families who have given us our blessing to name the dogs that. So it's a great tribute to those members, and a wonderful idea from Sergeant McGinnis. So I certainly appreciate that, and we'll continue with that trend with any new dogs that we have. As well, the Canine unit has set up a 3-year MOU service delivery model with Via Rail. So we will be conducting patrols on their behalf for when their commuter trains come in, not commuter trains, passenger trains come in, currently once a week. So as COVID reduces, that will go up. And so far, the patrols they've made have been received very well by the public. On to the community engagement team. As you heard from Julian, I can't really say more about him. His work at the community police center and his outreach is phenomenal. So you've heard from him on that. We also have the homeless outreach team, which is predominantly by one of the members, being done in the Richmond and Vancouver area. And throughout particularly the wintertime, you saw Constable Shipley out handing out socks and blankets, granola bars, and working with our vulnerable community, and when possible, making those critical referrals to shelters or other supports that are available. And really, he continues to be very passionate and has a great deal of community support and community network within that vulnerable and homeless community. Also, the Blue Eagle Cadet Program has really continued to gain strength. Last night was another meeting. So we have 16 cadets registered so far, and last night we registered 3 more. Just a couple of weeks ago, with the support of some of the CPC volunteers, they went on a hike to Lynn Valley, and as well through another one of the community engagement team members who has a member of the community who basically is a self-made entrepreneur who happens to have very fancy sports cars. That community member was able to bring some of those fancy sports cars out, but not just to show them the cars, but to show them that really anything is possible, and that if you're willing to put in the work, you can chase that dream and really establish the goals that you have, which is really, predominantly one of the key areas that we're trying to work in that Blue Eagle Cadet program. So it is going phenomenally well, and can't say enough for the volunteers and the community engagement team members that are supporting that. So as Julian also mentioned, so I won't belabor it, is the 529 registration of vehicles or of bikes, and also just doing that safety on transit. So continuing to have excellent community relations in the work that they're doing. Another unit that I'm in charge of is a criminal intelligence unit. So that's 2 analysts and 1 member. Just this week, we had our first all units intelligence meeting. So all of the units within the Metro Vancouver Transit Police, so our different specialized units as well as the squads, are just getting together weekly now to try and disseminate information to one another. Really the anecdotal stuff that a lot of the members on the street hear about, but we don't really, it's not criminal in nature, but just so that we can get a little bit ahead of maybe any emerging trends or issues that we're seeing on the system, and we're able to address those quickly. And also we have our analysts working on a joint initiative with the Real-Time Intelligence Center, which I might have a connection to because I used to be the officer in charge of that. But just to take a look at, obviously we've had some media previously on women and even youth being followed or stalked. So we're just taking a look at the analytics behind that and seeing if there's anything that we can do that is contributing right to the transit system to ensure the safety of those persons. And lastly, just about to get off the ground is the crime suppression team that was in a pilot form and is now a permanent unit of 6 members. Just completed the interviews this week, and we have identified the team members. They don't even know yet, so we'll be identifying them. We'll be advising them next week, and then we hope to have that unit off the ground as of mid-May. And that team is going to be able to deal with those issues that come up at the forefront, or if anything that's intelligence-led or anything that we hear right off, there's a unit available that can go and deal with these issues very quickly and effectively. And that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Great update. Thank you very much. Very detailed. I'll just add with the Canine unit, this was exciting for us. Several weeks ago, they were invited by the 39 Combat Engineer Regiment to participate in a joint training exercise, which occurred out in Columbia Valley. It was a 2-day event. And during that time, there were a number of explosive and combat-related missions. The exercises allowed the Canine unit to expose the dogs to a number of realistic scenarios. And it really did highlight their abilities to detect explosives in a combat environment. Some of the comments from the commanders included beyond impressed, and I had no idea on what this skill set brings to the table in terms of military training, and it's a game changer. So kudos to the unit. At the conclusion of the 2-day exercise, the Canine unit was presented with a plaque, and just some great appreciation coming from the Canadian military with respect to our dogs' capabilities. For the investigation section, we have professional standards, which we'll comment on later, but also the general investigation unit. And despite the challenges of COVID and working from home, so about half the unit will work from home while the other half is in the office, and they're still able to pursue some very challenging investigations that goes beyond the capacity of patrol, and to come up with some really good results. So great work being done in there. In the patrol section, which is Inspector Dexter Huber is in charge of, I'm happy to report that our sworn members and civilian members who work regularly in the office, as opposed to those mainly working from home, are now receiving the COVID vaccine. So it's a great morale booster for members. And just with respect to morale, I check in with the NCOs regularly, and despite the challenges, the morale remains fairly steady and high. So I was happy to hear that. And it's, we continue to monitor that as well regularly. And then just finally on the targeted mobile enforcement team, they continue to impress us monthly with just their ability to have a great impact in and around the system itself. So just some of the highlights, quick stats for the month of March. They generated 48 files. made 15 warrant arrests, produced 4 reports to Crown Counsel, were involved in 11 different JFOs, or joint force operations, with various agencies, and they also worked actively with transit security. The JFO activities included with Burnaby RCMP, commercial vehicle examination. They did some training with Burnaby, just so that TMAT is able to enhance the skills and the service that they provide. They worked with Port Moody Police Department with distracted driving, Ridge Meadows RCMP on impaired driving and counterattack, Surrey RCMP and ICBC on distracted driving, and as well as with other various jurisdictional police on commercial vehicle enforcement. The partners that they worked with included Transit Security, ICBC, CN Police, Burnaby RCMP, Delta Police, Port Moody Police, Surrey RCMP, Coquitlam RCMP, New West Commercial Vehicle Enforcement, and Ridge Meadows RCMP. So quite extensive in terms of their outreach, or reaching out to various partners. And a lot of that goes to the effort of Sergeant Steve Van Newton, who is real ambassador for the unit itself. They issued nearly 300 tickets, violation tickets, as well as immediate roadside suspensions, in addition to some of the other statistics I mentioned. In terms of their impact in and around the system, so they touched on all 4 points, from Maple Ridge to North Vancouver, Richmond, and West Vancouver. So they continue to do some great work. So those are just some of the highlights for the operations division. Thank you.
Just checking if I'm off or on. Thank you, Deputy Cumberworth. Chief, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
I'm going to assume that
I got Barry Cross still
Barry,
here, right?
Sorry, you're
I
coming
just
up next.
I would include, I know that that's been exciting, and it's good initiatives that are going on just from the ops side there. You know, part of the stuff we're doing again is to focus on like behaviors and actions and where problems are, like that whole intelligence-led. And intelligence-led is just beyond just criminal activity. It's where nuisance behaviors, if you want to call them, where are we needed? Where is it where we need to draw our attention? And you heard a bit from Julian. I also know on the ops side, like yesterday, they were in Richmond dealing with this whole, we need to stop the hate dialogue. We need people to be safe on transit. We need to, we've seen increases around the whole entire region about hate-related comments and that towards the Asian community. They had members of patrol, the NPOs out doing like very open campaigns on the system about how to report it, why it's not, you know, appropriate to do it. So with that, over to Barry, the exciting part. Oh, sorry, I see Mike put his hand up.
Sorry, Chief, and Superintendent Furlan just mentioned this, and I hate not to mention it, but the crime suppression team, in terms of their impact, 2 separate incidents where they engaged an offender and took loaded firearms off the street. One of the offenders decided to struggle and fight with police, but they were able to get him under control and seize his loaded firearm, which was in a fanny pack at his waist. So thanks, I just wanted to throw that in.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So, you know, the administrative division maybe not quite as upfront and exciting as operations is, but they are really, I think, the unsung heroes of the department here, because there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to help support our members so they can get out there and do all the fun and exciting stuff. But I'll just start off talking about recruiting. I've done other reports on where we are in recruiting, not too recently here, but we've got a May class coming up where we have 3 seats for recruits. In that class, we have 2 candidates that have been processed and signed off by the chief. At this point, we have a 3rd one that's almost complete, should have that by the end of this week. And all 3 of those candidates going to the class will be female members. On the fleet side of the house, I think I also reported a little while ago on our renewal for our fleet, which is going very, very well. So our members are very fortunate to have fairly new equipment in that respect. But we just received a few weeks ago our first 3 hybrid vehicles, and that was an initiative that we thought we should enter into. TransLink is very concerned about being green, and this is our attempt to get into the green initiative. So we have those delivered now. They're just being outfitted. And just so that you know, it doesn't seem like a lot of money, but it does add up over time. About $4,000 a year per vehicle is what the estimate on fuel savings will be for that. And again, it gives the members in operations a chance to get into some new vehicles, makes them feel better about their job when they're doing that. On the facility side, I've reported previously about our efforts to try and get the women's locker rooms in a better state of affairs. So where we stand right now is the phase 1 at the headquarters building. That initiative, that work will start fairly soon. We're just waiting for permits to be signed off by West Group. And once that's done, we can move forward. And phase 2 is the balance of that space we took over from TransLink's BTS area. That should start at the same time. That funding is nearly approved, and we look to see that project finished by the end of the summer. And out at Richmond, at the Richmond office at Bridgeport, that work on the new office there for the members is due to be finished by April 30th. And so that's moving along very, very nicely. It'll give them a new place to do the reports, et cetera. And then it frees up space in the old existing space for us to work on phase 2, which is the expansion and the renewal of the locker room space there for men and for the women there. And it gives us the space we need for future expansion when we start looking at what will occur when Broadway opens and the advent of taking on more staff there. On the training side of things, I did report before, we have 4 cycles of training every year. It's very similar to what Vancouver does in order to get members through training. COVID has kind of put a bit of a wrench in things for us because a lot of the in-person training that we would have planned has been altered. But our cycle 1, which happened in the first quarter of this year, was that simulator training I spoke of before, and that offer for board members to come out and experience that simulator as soon as we can provide a COVID safe environment is still there. Cycle 2, which is just now starting, will be our transition to our 9mm pistol. And I think as we reported before, we're switching from the 40 caliber to the 9mm pistol, and that will take place over the next month or so. To jump on the Julian Poncian train, our cycle 3 will be first aid training. And Julian touched on it briefly about his paramedic training, but the fact that we have Julian with that experience, and we have one other member, Shiraz Hanif, who has paramedic training, allows us to use our staff to be able to provide that training to members. And the feedback when he's done this training before from our staff is that they really enjoy the delivery of that first aid training from another police officer, another one of their peers, because they can relate that training to real on-the-job, real-life experience. So that will be starting in cycle 3, which will start in September. And cycle 4, for the balance of the year, it's still to be determined. We're going to have to wait to see what the provincial health order circumstances are as far as what we can shoehorn into that. And then the other side, which a lot of people don't find all that exciting, which is the IT side of the house, but we all need IT services. And I reported before, we had a long-term plan to establish our disaster recovery plan. And I had kind of joked before, we had a server, backup server in the room next to the regular server, which wasn't ideal. But we entered into an agreement with ECOM. ECOM is a post-disaster building at Cassiar and Hastings. And they've provided us some space in their server room. And we've just completed that move as of yesterday. So we actually do now have an off-site disaster recovery space for our servers. So that will provide us some stability and security on the IT side of the house going into the future. So that's all of my exciting news. And if you've got any questions, happy to answer anything.
Thanks, Barry. Does anybody have any questions? Ali.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the women's locker room, kind of this has been on the discussion a few times. I am just just cognizant, is there any reason that it's going slower, or is there budget issues, timing issues? What's happening there?
There's no budget issues. We've got the budget approved for that. I mean, it does take a little while in the TransLink process to get all that procurement done. What has slowed us down over the last number of months is that the building owner, which is West Group, they have to sign off on the final engineering report before we can get the permit from the city of New Westminster for the headquarters locker room. And for any number of reasons, they've been delayed at signing off on that. The pressure is on. We're trying to get them to do that as quickly as possible, but we're ready to flick the switch and the contractor is ready to go. We just need that final sign off by the building owner.
So the members don't feel like it's us dragging our feet. That's been communicated.
Yeah, no, I think we've communicated quite well. I know the chief has talked to the members quite often, and people drop into offices all the time. So they're aware that we've got all our ducks in a row, and we're just waiting for the building owner to get things going. So,
okay.
And I'll just say we did share with the members at a bit of a town hall what those floor plans look like. So, they can see in their mind's eye right now what it's going to be. So they do know that there's progress being made.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So hopefully we'll keep this one moving. It's important. Does anybody else have any other questions on anything we've heard today? It's a great report. Really thorough. It shows us how busy everybody has been over the year. And I thought it was interesting that there wasn't all that much mention of COVID, the burden of COVID on everybody this year, and all the additional work that you've been doing just to deal with the sort of COVID category of stuff. Because you've been pushing forward on so many different initiatives across the whole agency. And I think that we all want to acknowledge how hard everybody's working and thank everybody. I don't know if we do that often enough, but it is really incredible the amount of new initiatives, ongoing continuous work, pushing ahead on important initiatives that you've been doing throughout what is now a year of this COVID unprecedented, once in a century craziness. And I want to say on behalf of the whole board how grateful we are and how impressed we are at the dedication that everyone's shown over the course of this year, and the professionalism has been outstanding. So thank you.
Oh, and so, Madam Chair, also thanks for the comments. I think, policing is one of those industries where we still have to come to work, and they still have to get out there and do it. And despite, the challenges that we face, I think it just goes to show you right down to a person, I'll just use Julian as example, who actually starts a volunteer program during a pandemic, right? And and he just needed that support and reassurance and finding a way to do it. So there's a lot of people, right down to everyone from the civilians to even the newest member of the organization who have been contributing to what occurs.
And up to the top too, to the leadership around this table. Everybody's been working just unbelievably hard and professionally, diligence and dedication and passion, and we really appreciate that.
And we were able to borrow Superintendent Furlan during the year as well too.
Yeah, it's been good. So thank you. All right, so we'll now move on to other business. Item 4.1 strategic plan update.
Yes, thank you. So in late March, we went out and began to engage with our employees and ask for feedback in terms of the strat plan work that's been completed so far, the pillar work. I'll say the feedback was very positive across the board from employees. We did receive a lot of feedback that we were then able to incorporate with obviously the information we've collected from the Chiefs Community Council, the public, TransLink, and our police agency partners. So last Friday, we wrapped up our work with the facilitator, Louise Watson. I would like to thank her for her many contributions over the last 6 months. We got partway through the setting of strategic objectives. We've been working to wrap up that process this week. So I've had a number of meetings with staff this week, working on setting those objectives, and that work is set to continue on Monday. We do understand the urgency of that, given that we would like to move on to the next round of community consultation, as soon as possible. And we're still targeting having the pillars and the objectives complete for June to present to the board. So there was just a couple other items. There was a recommendation, I believe, from Chief Palmer at the last meeting to post an update on our website, just showcasing where we're at with the strat plan, and indicating to the public, that all of that feedback we had collected from members of the public and community partners was being used as part of the process. So that was added to our website a few weeks ago. I've also spoken to our Indigenous Liaison Officer, Kirk Rattray, as well as our lead of the community engagement team, Cheryl Simpkin, about looking at additional community partners we can speak to as part of the community consultation process. And we have identified a number of additional partners in addition to the Chiefs Community Council that we spoke about at the last meeting. So an example would be the Pacific Association of First Nations Women, of which Cheryl Simpkin is a part of that group. So I think I'll just kind of finish off by saying, equally as important as this next round of community consultation will be just ensuring that as we move out into the rollout and implementation of the plan in the latter half of the year, that engagement continues. So, a strat plan can't predict every eventuality. I think the pandemic is a good example of that, something you really can't predict when it occurs. But it's important to recognize the impacts of those new and current events and the impacts it's having on our community partners. The Chiefs Community Council is a very good example of a conduit we use to get feedback from those community partners about how those current events are impacting them and how transit police can assist those partners as well as supporting our strategic goals. So I'll be talking a little bit more about this with the board later on this morning, but I'd say, just overall level of engagement has been very positive. And looking ahead, looking to keep up that level of engagement and feedback as we move further along in the process.
Thank you, Stephen. Does anybody have any questions? No. Okay. Thank you. I did notice that there's been a lot of work being done over the last couple of months, and I really appreciate it. It looks really good work. So looking forward to seeing the outcome of the next phase of that. So thank you.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Move to item 4.2, diversity initiatives. We're going to have a discussion about diversity initiatives. Go ahead, Chief.
I was going to say, I think this is a standing item we have on here to talk about it. Obviously, as you heard in the admin update, we continue to focus on diversity, and diversity has very different, I'm going to say, aspects to it, everything from language skills, ethnicity, gender, and that. It continues to be a focus. You see the 3 recruits that we appear to have for the May class will all be female. There are other diverse aspects of them, so, whether it be language and background and that in terms of it. And we continue to look internally, both at developing, we're revamping the promotional process for sergeants, staff sergeants. Sergeants is the first one. We'll be bringing it back to you to show some of those differences in a report in June. We've been working with the union on revamping it, including a way to mentor some of our even younger individuals, not too young, but people who are, to get them prepared to come into it. The union's been really receptive to it as well. So, and also looking at a lot of, I'm going to say, merit-based success and getting into positions. Sometimes we can get hung up on seniority. And of course, if you're just catching up on diversity issues, the majority of your seniority is going to be in the males, if that's what your hiring was 10 years ago and that. So, recent success and even the next 2 dog positions there, we, again, really, a merit-based approach, and the individuals who got it happen to be 2 female members who are successful with it. So across the board, it's not just in promotion, it's in the workforce, it's in the sections, it's in the civilian staff as we work towards everything here. So we'll try and get together perhaps for the June a more fulsome report of where we've come this year in terms of it.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments? Sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
a little hard to see the sun in my eyes, but if you do, then raise your hand, please.
Thanks, Dave, for that. I appreciate that. I noticed in the comments from the regarding the strat plan that there was a suggestion of making the diversity, equity, inclusion strategy, like that there should be a strategy. And I'm just wondering about how transparent the strategy for diversity, equity, and inclusion is to the entire membership. Like, what is it? A process that's published? Is it? Is there a discussion about it at every level? Is there an understanding of how diversity, equity, inclusion are being promoted and included through the organization?
Right. So I'd say most of it's at the discussion level, right? In terms of instituting it into all of our practices and what we do, right? So when we talk about, when you go into, say, dealing with the promotional process and revamping how promotions are addressed, like, whether it be a statement looks at, and we call it equity, diversity, and inclusion, the EDI of it, in terms of it. And then when we're talking into the hiring, the HR, our processes for hiring, that there has to be a focus on equity, diversion, and inclusion. So it's into all of our discussions and our processes as we're establishing where it can be affected and where there's an impact to it. But I agree that's where someone has made up the suggestion and says, like, do we have an actual strategy? Because part of it has to become, you can have a strategy, but the strategy is to get it into how you conduct business on a day-to-day basis. It has to become your philosophy, it has to become part of your core. If it's part of just a policy, I almost say you lose its effectiveness and its impact. So almost like succession planning, you have to be open about it. It should be announced. It should be spoken about, and people should be able to see it clearly, right? And there should be no surprises when it comes to things such as that.
Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Carla.
Sorry. No, I agree that it's, you talked about it as a strategy, but that as that discussion continues and it becomes more clear that the sort of concrete is made clear and is transparent in terms of what metrics we use, how do we understand our own organization in terms of diversity. Yeah. So I'm glad to see that we're on track with that.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Yeah, and then maybe there will be a day, the perfect idyllic halcyon future where it is just the way things are done, and that would be, we'll work towards that. Yes. And we'll hear more about this in the next meeting when there'll be a written report, but I did notice those comments as well. And I think we're going to be building it in a lot more clearly and more transparently as we move forward. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, I didn't see any. So item 4.3, report from the chair of the Finance Committee.
Hello, everyone. Madam Chair, our objective just is to put forward the budget for 2021. We've had lots of deliberations amongst our, within our board and also within the Finance Committee. So I'll just get to the point, and we put it for information for this budget. It's been scrutinized, agreed to by Transit, and it's the best we can do in the circumstances. And as such, I put forward them to the board to put this motion forward.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? No, we've had lots of conversations about this over the last few months, and indeed, circumstances are what they are. Okay, so someone would want to move this motion.
Moved.
Thank you, George. Seconded.
Second.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, all in favor of the South Coast British Columbia Transportation Authority Police Board approve the Transit Police 2021 final budget in the amount of $37,892,919. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? No. Okay.
Nothing further to report. Thank you.
Carried. We will move on to item 4.5, the report from the chair of the Governance Committee.
Sure. In the interest of time, just a couple of things. We dealt with a number of items outlined. Actually, that was in the consent agenda as well. One of the things we've talked about is the respectful workplace policy that has been in place actually since 2005. It gets reviewed every year. Last time it was revised was 2018, and there's been a discussion really feeling, I think, that it's incumbent on the board in its current composition to reaffirm that particular policy and see if we need to adjust in any way. So we're going to have a further, I think, discussion around that and with the board and bring it back, just make sure that it's timely, just given everything that's out there right now. That was one item. The other thing was the onboarding process in the manual. I think Carla and probably Marnie and myself, being the newest members, have talked with Taryn about trying to actually reduce the size of it and include some of the things related to the Indigenous policy, probably the respectful workplace policy as well. So we're looking at ways to condense that. The risk matrix is the other thing that we're going through. So all of the committees out there are going to be dealing with Pat on that. There's 43 lines of separate risk. We're trying to reduce some of those and segment them out. And finally, we're going to talk a little bit later on about the board evaluation review. Then that's been completed. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I don't see any. Thank you. Yeah, you're busy. Got a lot on your plate. So that's great. Item number 5. The fair and impartial policing bias-free training offered by the Vancouver Police Board. Has everybody had a chance to look at that and consider whether or not they're interested in going? I know Carla has already said that she wants to go. If anybody else wants to go, let us know. It looks really good, actually. So
limited to one.
Is it limited to one?
Yeah,
I thought it was 2.
I've actually got confirmation. We can get a second board member in there. They do have the space right now.
Okay, that must be what I had in my head. So maybe look at your calendars and see if that's something that any of you can take on. I would take it. But I've had a benefit of a lot of training over the years, and I feel like I should let somebody else rather than hog it all, because it's really interesting. Anyway, maybe we could find out if there's more space too. All right,
I'll move the motion.
Thank you. That the South Coast British Columbia Transportation Authority Police Board of Directors approve the registration cost of $150 per person for direct to hotel to defend the fair and impartial policing bias-free training session hosted by the Vancouver Police Board on June 3rd, 2021 by Zoom. All in favor? Anyone opposed? No, carried. Thank you. Our next meeting of the Transit Police Board is scheduled for June 18th at 9 a.m. here on Zoom. So if there's no other business for the open portion of the meeting, I will adjourn at 10:29.